She just wanted to stay in the background, that was all. But when Chef Martha Coleman singled her out in front of everyone, mockingly handing her an apron, Emma Hayes felt all eyes turned toward her. "Show us what you can do," the renowned chef sneered. "Let's see if home cooking skills measure up." Little did they know, this simple woman in plain clothes was about to turn their culinary world upside down. The prestigious Chicago Culinary Institute bustled with energy as aspiring chefs and food enthusiasts gathered for the sold-out masterclass. Gleaming stainless steel workstations reflected the overhead lights, while the scent of fresh herbs and simmering stock filled the air. Emma Hayes adjusted her simple white t-shirt, feeling out of place among the sea of professional chef coats and culinary students in their crisp uniforms. At 38, she'd mastered the art of blending into the background, her honey blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, minimal makeup, nothing that would draw attention. "You sure you don't want me to mention who you are?" whispered Jen, her niece, excitement dancing in her eyes. At 22, Jen was pursuing her culinary dreams with the same passion Emma once had. "Absolutely not," Emma replied firmly. "I'm just here to support you. This is your moment." Jen squeezed her aunt's hand. "I still can't believe you got me into this workshop. It's impossible to get tickets." Emma smiled softly. "I called in an old favor, that's all." A hush fell over the crowd as the doors to the teaching kitchen swung open. Chef Martha Coleman strode in, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, designer glasses perched on her nose, and a chef's coat emblazoned with the logo of her award-winning restaurant chain. At 65, she was culinary royalty, feared by kitchen staff, revered by critics, and known for her merciless approach to teaching. "Welcome," Martha announced, her voice carrying effortlessly through the space. "Today's masterclass will separate those with genuine potential from those merely playing at being chefs." As she spoke, her sharp eyes scanned the room, evaluating each face. When she spotted Emma in her casual clothes, a flicker of disdain crossed her features. "I see we have some enthusiastic home cooks joining us today," Martha remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. Emma kept her expression neutral, though her stomach tightened. She knew that look, had seen it countless times in professional kitchens. The judgment, the immediate dismissal. "Now," Martha continued, clapping her hands together, "let's begin with the foundations of French cuisine. The mother sauces are the building blocks upon which culinary excellence is built." As Martha demonstrated the first technique, Emma whispered tips to Jen, guiding her through the subtle details the chef was glossing over. "Actually," Emma murmured, "if she lowered the heat slightly, the sauce wouldn't break so easily." Unfortunately, her whisper wasn't quite quiet enough. Martha's head snapped up, her piercing gaze locking onto Emma like a heat-seeking missile. "Do we have an expert in our midst?" Martha's voice cut through the room like a freshly sharpened knife. The crowd turned. Emma felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her. She'd been spotted. Chef Martha's heels clicked sharply against the polished floor as she approached Emma. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent room, punctuating each step with unspoken authority. "You have something to add to my demonstration?" Martha asked, one perfectly manicured eyebrow arched in challenge. Emma shook her head slightly. "No, I was just helping my niece understand the technique." Martha's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh? And what expertise do you bring to this assistance?" Before Emma could answer, Martha glanced down at Emma's hands. Despite years away from professional kitchens, they still bore the telltale signs: slight burns, calluses, the nearly imperceptible nick scars that were the badges of a life spent with knives and heat. "Those are cook's hands," Martha observed, her voice sharper now. "Not just a hobbyist, are you?" Emma kept her expression neutral. "I've worked in kitchens before." A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Martha's smile tightened as she surveyed Emma's simple white t-shirt and jeans, a stark contrast to her own impeccable appearance. "Well then," Martha's voice carried across the room, "perhaps you'd like to come up here and demonstrate for us." Emma felt her niece tense beside her. "Aunt Em, you don't have to. I'm really just here to observe," Emma replied calmly, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Martha's laugh was brittle. "Isn't that convenient? Happy to critique but unwilling to perform?" The challenge hung in the air, Some students shifted uncomfortably, while others watched with the thinly veiled delight of witnessing potential drama. Emma recognized the trap. She'd seen Martha do this before on her cooking show, publicly humiliating amateur chefs who dared to question her methods. "I insist," Martha said, no longer smiling. She gestured to an empty workstation. "Show us what you know." A young assistant, catching Martha's signal, hurried forward with a spare apron. Emma remained seated, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. 10 years she'd been away from this world. 10 years building a quiet life where nobody scrutinized her every move, where food was about joy rather than judgment. "Come now," Martha said, her voice honey-sweet with mock encouragement. Surely someone confident enough to correct my technique isn't afraid of a little demonstration. Emma felt the trap closing around her. Refuse, and she'd be labeled a coward. Accept, and she risked everything she'd built since leaving the spotlight. "It's just a simple bechamel," Martha added, the challenge unmistakable. "Surely a kitchen veteran can manage that?" The assistant placed the apron on the table in front of Emma. The white fabric seemed to glow under the bright lights of the teaching kitchen. "That's fine," Emma finally said, her voice quiet but steady. "I'd be happy to demonstrate." As she stood, she heard whispers around her. Did she just volunteer to go against Chef Coleman? Does she know who she's dealing with? This is going to be brutal. Emma tied the apron around her waist, muscle memory taking over as she formed the perfect bow at her back. She followed Martha to the front, aware of every eye tracking her movement. "Your name?" Martha asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Emma Hayes." Martha gestured expansively to the workstation. "Well, Emma Hayes, show us how you would approach a proper bechamel. And perhaps," she added with a tight smile, "explain to everyone how your method improves upon the technique I've been perfecting for 40 years. The challenge was clear. This wasn't just about making a sauce. This was Martha publicly putting Emma in her place, establishing dominance in front of an audience who had paid handsomely to learn from a culinary legend, not an unknown woman in everyday clothes. Emma took a deep breath and stepped up to the stove. Standing at the gleaming professional workstation, Emma felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Her fingers hovered over the ingredients: butter, flour, milk, salt, nutmeg, arranged in perfect mise en place, so familiar, yet now framed by the weight of public scrutiny. Behind her, she could sense Martha's triumphant anticipation. The renowned chef expected fumbling, hesitation, proof of an amateur overstepping. The audience waited with bated breath for the spectacle. "Whenever you're ready," Martha prompted, her voice carrying an edge sharp enough to fillet a fish. "Unless you'd prefer to return to your seat?" Emma gazed down at the stainless steel surface, catching her own reflection. The woman staring back was no longer the confident executive chef who had once commanded kitchens across 3 continents. Yet neither was she the failure Martha was attempting to expose. A memory surfaced, the last competition she'd entered before walking away from it all. The pressure, the cameras, the judges' exacting standards. She'd won that day, her 10th major championship, before disappearing from the culinary spotlight completely. "The clock is ticking, Ms. Hayes," Martha announced, gesturing to the digital timer now displayed on the overhead screen. "Professional kitchens wait for no one." Emma's hands finally moved, reaching for the butter with practiced precision. As her fingers wrapped around the cold block, something awakened within her. Muscle memory, yes, but something deeper. The joy that had first drawn her to cooking, before accolades and expectations complicated everything. She placed a heavy-bottomed saucepan on the induction cooktop, adjusting the heat with instinctive accuracy. The butter began melting, releasing its nutty aroma into the air. "You'll want to watch the temperature," Martha commented loudly to the audience. "Too hot and the butter burns, too cool and the roux won't develop properly." Emma didn't respond. She didn't need to. The melting butter hit exactly the right temperature, not sizzling wildly, not sluggishly pooling. Perfect. As she added the flour, her movements became fluid, confident. The wooden spoon moved in rhythmic circles, transforming the mixture into a smooth paste that released the distinct aroma of cooked flour without a hint of burning. From the corner of her eye, Emma noticed a slight shift in Martha's posture. The older chef had expected mistakes by now, not the precise, assured movements of a professional. Emma reached for the warm milk, and in that moment, made her decision. She could follow Martha's standard recipe, producing a technically correct but uninspired sauce. Or she could show what she was truly capable of. Taking a deep breath, Emma chose authenticity over anonymity. If she was going to do this, she would do it her way. Actually, she said, her voice clear and steady as she began slowly incorporating the milk, I prefer to infuse the dairy first. And with that simple statement, Emma Hayes stepped back into the light. The room fell silent as Emma added bay leaf and a sprig of thyme to the warming milk, along with the traditional onions studded with cloves. These classic French techniques were often skipped in demonstrations, considered too time-consuming for modern kitchens. You're taking quite the detour for a simple bechamel, Martha remarked, crossing her arms. Perhaps trying to distract from the fundamentals? Emma smiled softly. The fundamentals are precisely why I'm doing this. Flavor foundations matter. She removed the infused milk from the heat, straining it with practiced efficiency. Her movements were economical, precise, nothing wasted, nothing showy. Just pure technique refined through thousands of repetitions. A young culinary student in the front row whispered to her neighbor, I've never seen milk strained like that before. So smooth. Martha caught the comment, her lips pressing into a thin line. Emma returned to her roux, which waited at the perfect temperature. As she began incorporating the infused milk, she maintained a consistent stirring pattern that professional chefs would recognize, a technique that prevented lumps while building silky texture. Note that I'm adding the milk gradually, Emma explained, her voice calm and instructional. This prevents shock to the roux and ensures proper emulsification. Several students began taking notes, their attention fully captured. Martha's expression darkened. A rather basic observation, Martha cut in. Perhaps we should move on to something more challenging? Emma nodded, unruffled. Of course. Martha gestured to a selection of ingredients at the neighboring station. Since you're clearly comfortable with basics, let's see you elevate this sauce. Create something worthy of a fine dining establishment. The challenge was clear. Martha was raising the stakes, expecting Emma to falter with more complex techniques. Emma surveyed the ingredients: black truffles, aged Parmigiano Reggiano, saffron threads, lobster stock, and various molecular gastronomy elements. A test of both skill and creativity. Without hesitation, Emma selected the Parmigiano and a small amount of truffle. Less is more, her old mentoring chef used to say. She grated the aged cheese with expert precision, the movement so fluid it appeared effortless. The audience watched, transfixed, as she created a delicate infusion with the truffle, adding it to her bechamel with a technique that preserved the aroma while integrating the flavors completely. I'm keeping the integrity of the mother sauce, Emma explained, while enhancing it with complementary elements. The aroma wafting through the teaching kitchen was intoxicating. Several culinary students closed their eyes, inhaling appreciatively. Even Martha's assistant glanced longingly at the sauce. You're avoiding the molecular components, Martha pointed out sharply. Not familiar with modern techniques? Emma smiled. Sometimes classic execution speaks for itself. She picked up a spoon, dipped it into the sauce, and held it out toward Martha. Would you care to taste? It was a bold move, offering the master chef a taste of her own challenge. The room held its collective breath. Martha hesitated, then stepped forward, accepting the spoon with practiced dignity. Years of judging competitions had trained her to conceal her reactions, but even she couldn't hide the momentary widening of her eyes as the flavor registered. The sauce was perfect. Not just technically sound, but transcendent. The kind of preparation that reminded trained palates why they'd fallen in love with cooking in the first place. Acceptable, Martha said stiffly, returning the spoon. But everyone had seen that moment of surprise, that flash of genuine appreciation before her professional mask slid back into place. From the third row, a middle-aged man in Chef White's leaned forward, his brow furrowed in concentration as he studied Emma's technique. A flicker of recognition crossed his face. The way she rolls her wrist when stirring, he whispered to his colleague. I've only seen one chef do that before. Let's raise the stakes, Martha announced, recovering her composure. Anyone can prepare a single sauce with enough practice. True culinary excellence requires versatility. She gestured to her assistants, who wheeled in a cart loaded with mystery ingredients covered by silver domes. a standard challenge format from televised cooking competitions. Perhaps Ms. Hayes would like to prepare something more substantial. Martha's smile was razor thin. Something that might actually challenge her home cooking skills. The implication was clear. Martha believed Emma's sauce was a fluke, a single practiced party trick. Students shifted forward in their seats, the demonstration now transformed into unexpected entertainment. The middle-aged chef who had noticed Emma's technique pulled out his phone discreetly, typing something with rapid keystrokes. Emma maintained her composure as Martha dramatically removed the covers, revealing an assortment of ingredients. Live scallops still in their shells, exotic mushrooms, microgreens, and several components that would challenge even professional chefs. 20 minutes, Martha announced, setting the timer. Create a dish worthy of fine dining presentation. Emma surveyed the ingredients, mentally assessing combinations and techniques. Then, without fanfare, she began working. Her knife skills were immediately apparent, the precision, the speed, the consistency of each cut revealing years of professional expertise. She broke down the scallops with a technique rarely seen outside Japanese kitchens, preserving every usable element. The students watched, mesmerized, as Emma utilized cooking methods that weren't just advanced, they were innovative. She created a scallop mousse with unexpected flavor notes, utilizing a French technique that had fallen out of fashion decades ago, but was experiencing a renaissance in the world's top restaurants. Martha's triumphant expression gradually transformed into one of confusion, then concern. This woman wasn't just good, she was exceptional. Your knife work is quite precise, Martha commented, trying to maintain control of the situation. Where did you train? Emma smiled slightly as she continued working. Here and there, I've picked things up over the years. From the audience, the middle-aged chef stood suddenly, phone in hand. His voice carried across the room. That's why I recognized you, he called out, his tone filled with dawning realization. You're Emma Hayes. Emma's hands paused momentarily before continuing their work. The Emma Hayes, continued the chef, holding up his phone screen, 10-time international culinary champion, former executive chef at Le Ciel in Paris and Lumiere in New York. A wave of gasps and murmurs swept through the room. Students turned to each other in disbelief, some pulling out their own phones to confirm. The youngest chef ever to receive 3 Michelin stars? The man continued, his voice growing more confident. The Emma Hayes who disappeared from the culinary world at the height of her career? All eyes swung between Emma and the man making these extraordinary claims. Martha stood frozen, the color draining from her face as the implications sank in. Emma continued working, her focus unwavering as she plated her creation with artistic precision. Only when she set down her final garnish did she look up to face the room. I prefer just Emma now, she said quietly. The timer buzzed, 20 minutes exactly. Martha stared at the completed dish before her, a masterpiece of culinary art that would have been at home in any world-class restaurant. Then she looked at Emma, seeing her truly for the first time. You competed against me, Martha said slowly, memories surfacing. Copenhagen, 2013, the International Chef Challenge. Emma nodded once. You won, Martha continued, her voice hollow. You were wearing a hat that day. Your hair was different. It was, Emma agreed. The middle-aged chef stepped forward, his phone displaying an old article with a photo. A younger Emma holding a trophy, surrounded by judges and competitors. Martha Coleman stood in the background, her expression tight with disappointment. She didn't just win, the chef announced, turning to address the crowd. She set a scoring record that hasn't been broken since. The room erupted in commotion, students whispering excitedly, several taking photos, others frantically searching Emma's name online. The revelation rippled through the audience like wildfire. But why are you here? Martha asked, genuine bewilderment breaking through her typically controlled demeanor. Like this? She gestured to Emma's simple clothing, her unassuming presence. Emma glanced at Jen, who was watching with wide eyes and an expression of mingled shock and pride. I came to support my niece, Emma said simply. I didn't come to teach or compete. I came because someone I love wanted to learn. The honesty in her voice silenced the room once more. Even Martha seemed at a loss for words. The culinary world has been searching for you for years, someone called from the back. Emma nodded, her expression thoughtful. I know, but I found what I was searching for instead. The atmosphere in the teaching kitchen had transformed completely. Students who had barely noticed Emma earlier now gazed at her with undisguised awe. Some approached tentatively, phones in hand, hoping for a photo or autograph. Martha Coleman stood by the demonstration table, her rigid posture betraying the internal struggle between professional pride and genuine respect. Finally, after a moment that seemed to stretch endlessly, she extended her hand to Emma. "Your technique is impeccable," Martha admitted, each word clearly costing her significant effort. "The industry has missed your influence." Emma accepted the handshake with grace. "Thank you, Chef Coleman." One brave culinary student raised her hand. "Ms. Hayes, why did you leave? You were at the top of your game." The room grew quiet again, everyone leaning forward slightly, eager for the answer to the mystery that had puzzled the culinary world for years. Emma considered the question, her expression thoughtful. "I loved cooking," she said finally, "but I lost touch with why I started cooking in the first place. The competitions, the critics, the constant pressure to innovate. I found myself creating food to impress others rather than food that brought genuine joy." She gestured toward her completed dish, still sitting on the demonstration table. "This is beautiful, technically perfect even. But the best meal I've made recently was a simple Sunday dinner with my family. No cameras, no critics, just food made with love for people I care about." Her words resonated through the room, touching something universal among the aspiring chefs. Even Martha seemed affected, her usual stern expression softening almost imperceptibly. "Would you consider teaching occasionally?" Martha asked, surprising everyone, herself included, judging by her expression. "These students could learn a great deal from you." Emma looked around at the eager faces, then at her niece Jen, who nodded encouragingly. "Perhaps," Emma said with a small smile, "on my terms this time." As the masterclass concluded, Emma Hayes slipped off her borrowed apron, once again becoming the unassuming woman who had walked in hours earlier. But something had changed. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had reclaimed a part of herself she'd set aside. True talent doesn't fade. It doesn't need constant validation or recognition to exist. Sometimes, the most extraordinary people are those living ordinary lives, finding joy in simplicity, until the moment they're called to shine. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales of hidden talents and unexpected revelations. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments below. Our community spans across America, sharing stories that remind us never to judge a book by its cover. Remember, extraordinary talent may be right beside you, in the most unassuming package.